7 Sinister Discoveries Hiding in Haunted Woods That Will Chill You to the Core. Maria stood at the window, the waning light of day throwing eerie shadows across the worn floorboards. Blackthorn loomed behind her, a town wrapped in suspicion and whispers. The air was thick with secrets, and her heart raced, as the trees at the edge of the property twisted into monstrous shapes against the darkening sky. It felt as if the woods were breathing, holding their breath with something sinister hidden within. 7 secrets, they said. 7 shadowed mysteries that reached out to snatch the unwary. Goosebumps crawled over her arms, but any fear paled in comparison to the dread that had settled around her since her husband vanished during a hike last summer. When Maria finally tore her gaze away from the oppressive forest, she turned to her children, Alex and Lily, playing quietly on the faded rug. They looked up at her, their eyes wide with both innocence and an understanding that belied their age. The world had become a precarious place, and every creak of the old house felt like a warning that something was terribly wrong. Even the kind smiles from the town's folk felt frayed and broken, like each grin carried a debt of unspoken fear. Just then, Alex's excitement shattered the silence. "Mom, look what I found." His voice was barely above a whisper, full of adventure and mischief. He waved a crumpled map in the air, its corners worn and edges frayed. Maria felt her heart stutter. "Where did you find that?" "Under the loose board in my room." He beamed, unfolding it with trembling hands. The map depicted 7 locations deep within the woods, accented with warnings in shaky handwriting and illustrations of dark rituals. Maria felt her blood run cold. The air around them shifted, as if the very atmosphere recoiled from the map's revelation. "Put that down," she said, urgency infecting her voice. "We don't go into the woods, Alex. Not ever." But his defiance ignited in his eyes. Lily hopped onto the couch, the thrill of rebellion overcoming her caution, and as night fell over Blackthorn, the children conspired under the serious gaze of their weary mother. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The next morning, the air crackled with anticipation. Maria was at work, her hands scrubbing tabletops in the diner while dread clawed at her insides. Hours slipped away as the sun rose higher, unaware of the shadows brewing behind her. She felt an uneasy stirring, and when a frantic call from the neighbors broke her focus, she rushed from the diner, every second stretching painfully as she sprinted toward the woods. Alex and Lily had snuck off, and panic twisted in her gut like barbed wire. As she plunged into the thick underbrush, the trees closed in, shadows deepening around her, the forest humming with a strange pulse. Whispers echoed in the leaves, promises of danger hiding behind every twisted trunk. Then, she heard their voices, a distant call breaking the heavy silence. "Mom!" They seemed so far away. The forest thrummed with a life of its own. Something was awakening. Her breath quickened, and she pushed deeper, the ground shifting underfoot as if the earth itself was becoming restless. Dark patterns formed in her mind, twisted roots, ancient stone altars, blood-stained histories. Just as she approached the clearing, the air grew thick, heavy, an unseen weight pressing down. The children's voices pierced the fog, but there was something else lurking in the silence, an unsettling dread as the very essence of the wood seemed to clutch at her ankles, pulling her toward an inescapable confrontation. What had her children stumbled upon? And what dark truth still lingered in Blackthorn, hidden among the shadows? As chilling mist enveloped her, the forest whispered secrets, beckoning her deeper into its heart, daring her to uncover the nightmares hidden within. Maria stumbled forward, each step a battle against the weight of the forest's oppressive silence. The kids' calls echoed, distant and haunting, mixing with the rustling leaves that seemed to mock her urgency. The trees twisted into menacing shapes, branches clawing at her like skeletal fingers. Panic surged through her veins, sharpening her focus as she forced herself onward. The clearing she entered was bathed in a sickly light, a place stripped of all warmth. It was then she saw them, Alex and Lily, crouched around a stone altar covered in dirt and dried leaves, their faces painted with an unsettling mixture of curiosity and fear. Maria's heart sank, a cold pit forming in her stomach. "What are you doing?" she shouted, her voice breaking through the still air. "Get away from there." But the moment her words left her lips, an unnatural hush fell over the clearing. The children froze, their wide eyes tracking something just beyond her sight. A soft rustling grew, the leaves whispering ancient secrets. Shadows coalesced around them, creeping like smoke, and within its shroud, figures emerged, dark silhouettes that swirled around the altar. Maria's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the forms. They were the townspeople, their faces twisted in expressions of torment and something far worse. "Mom!" Alex screamed as fear lit his eyes, darting toward her. Lily followed, her small hands gripping Alex's. Maria dashed forward, pulling them close, desperately shielding them with her body as she felt the weight of the woods press in on her. The shadowy figures began to chant, low and rhythmic, their voices merging into a haunting symphony that reverberated through her chest. The air crackled, charged with a dark energy that made her skin crawl. She glanced around, searching for an escape, but the trees closed in tighter, their roots snaking across the ground like vipers, blocking her path. "Never leave," one of the figures whispered, the voice familiar yet distorted, echoing inside her skull, as if the forest itself was warning her of an eternal entrapment. Fear sparked and took hold of Maria. She could feel the cold fingers of despair digging into her mind. "We must go," she urged, pulling the children closer as she backed away, her heart pounding. But just as they turned, the shadows shifted, revealing a gaping chasm in the ground where the altar had stood. It pulsed like a living thing, darkness swirling like a storm within. "Mom, what is happening?" Lily cried, her voice trembling with terror. "I don't know, but we have to get away," Maria said, her words sharp with fear, even as dread clawed at her mind. She could hear the chanting intensifying, rising and falling, luring them closer, promising a fate wrapped in agony. She turned to flee, dragging the children with her as the shadows lunged. They felt the tendrils of cold air whip past them, reaching, grasping for any sign of weakness. Maria's chest tightened. She would not let this darkness consume them. Running, she could still hear the echoes, the whispers of the forest taunting them, warning them of the 7 secrets lurking just beyond reach. The forest was alive, wild with a hunger that knew no bounds. What terror awaited them if they remained? Just as they stumbled back through the trees, something sharp brushed against Maria's ankle. She fell, her grip loosening, and in that split second, the shadows surged forward, the children screaming, the ground rumbling with a malevolent pulse. Then silence thick and suffocating as if the very air had been snatched away. What darkness had she unleashed? What waited beyond the veil of trees? The truth was far worse than she could ever imagine. Maria clutched her children, heart racing, as the ground beneath them trembled with a hunger that felt all too eager. The silence pressed against Maria like a heavy blanket, and for a moment, it felt as if time itself had stopped. Instinctively, she reached for Alex and Lily, her hands trembling as they huddled close. The dim light around them flickered, as if responding to her fear. She could hear the breath of the forest slow, steady, a rhythmic heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with her racing pulse. "Mom, I can't see," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible, as if the darkness might swallow her words. "Just hold on to me," Maria said, her voice steady despite the quaking fear inside her. She scanned the forest, the gnarled branches casting menacing shadows that danced in the fading light. The chasm behind them idled, the air above it moving as if alive, swollen with promises of despair. The chanting resumed, louder this time, ebbing and flowing like an ocean tide. "You will not escape," the shadows moaned, their voices layered with anguish. Fear clawed at Maria's throat, grinding into knots, but she forced herself to breathe. Which way? Alex's voice trembled, panic making it a whisper of desperation. Any way but back. She snapped, taking a step away from the abyss. The trees seemed to shift, their twisted limbs almost reaching out as if to hold her back. Without thinking, she darted left, the kids trailing close behind. The forest churned around them, the underbrush snagging at their feet as though trying to ensnare them in its grip. Maria felt her heart thundering, the pulse echoing in her ears louder than the chilling chant behind them. "Mom, look!" Alex cried, pointing. Ahead, a faint glow pierced the dark, flickering like a promise of safety. But as they approached, Maria's hope turned to cold dread when she realized it was another clearing, one marked with darker intentions. In the center stood a massive stone pedestal, engraved with twisted symbols that crawled with unnatural light. Around it lay remnants of burnt offerings, charred bones, fragments of decayed roots that released a putrid odor. "What is this place?" Lily asked, her voice quivering. I don't know," Maria admitted, eyes darting, catching the chilling gaze of the shadowy figures beginning to encircle them again. The murmurs had shifted, they now seemed to echo directly in her mind. "You must join us," they sang, hauntingly sweet, as they advanced. "Run!" Maria shouted, adrenaline coursing through her as she yanked her children away from the altar. But the ground was slick, as though the earth itself was conspiring against her, and she felt her foot slip on a patch of something moist and sprawling. In that instant, the shadows lunged, and the air thickened with a terrible chill. Maria stumbled, the kids screamed slicing through the darkness. "Grab my hand," she urged. But as she reached for them, a figure, one of the townsfolk, leapt forward from the melee of darkness. "Join us, it's the only way," it hissed, its face a mask of anguish and yearning. "We can't!" Maria screamed, the weight of the forest pressing down, suffocating her conviction. Then, a bone-chilling wail pierced the air borne from the depths of the chasm, loud enough to shake the very roots of the trees. It reverberated through them, wrapping around her heart, squeezing, igniting a primal fear that threatened to engulf her completely. Suddenly, the forest shivered and twisted. Branches undulated, and the clearing shifted, as if the land itself was alive, responding to the call from the abyss. Shadows flickered around her, forming grotesque faces, laughing at her fear. "Mom! Please!" Alex's voice pleaded, panic-stricken. In that moment, Maria realized they stood at a precipice not just of the earth, but of their very existence. They needed to escape this nightmare. But what path lay ahead, and what sacrifices would it demand? "Run!" she cried again, as the darkness coiled closer, dread pooling inside her like venom. They surged forward, hearts pounding, as a chilling whisper escaped her lips, "We must find the secrets before they find us," and just then, the ground trembled again, opening wider, revealing a glimpse of the abyss that stared hungrily back at them, eager to swallow what remained. What terror awaited them beneath its depths? What darkness had they truly awakened? Fear raced through Maria like fire, urging her limbs to move even as the madness swirled around them. The shadows advanced, their forms flickering in the dim light, stretching limbs and distorting faces into haunting, grotesque apparitions. It felt as if the forest had become a living entity, every tree a monitor of their despair. "Mom, where do we go?" Lily's voice cracked, losing hope in the chaos. Maria could feel her heart breaking at the sight of her daughter's terror. "Just keep running," she shouted, her voice raw with urgency. She hardly knew where they were heading, but instinct drove her forward, blindly navigating through the forest's twisted maze. The chanting grew louder now, echoing as if the woods themselves were mocking them, merging with the heavy sound of their footsteps. Thud, 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 they burst through a thicket and skidded to a stop. Before them, another clearing yawned, its size overwhelming. And in the center, a massive, gnarled tree towered, its bark dark and crumbling, radiating a menacing presence that seemed to absorb all light. Wisps of fog slithered around its base, creeping out like worms from the earth. "I don't like this place, Mom," Alex gasped, tightening his grip on her hand. His eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the tree's twisted branches that reached outward like skeletal fingers. "Neither do I," she admitted through gritted teeth, scanning the clearing for any sign of safety. But the weight of despair pressed on her shoulders, bringing with it a choking realization, there might be no escape. Then, suddenly, the whispers rose again, louder, echoing through the clearing, wrapping around them like chains. "Join us before night falls," they hissed in unison, voices slithering into their minds, sowing seeds of doubt. "I can't stand this," Lily cried, collapsing to her knees, her small form trembling as she stared at the tree. "Make it stop. Get up. We need to keep moving," Maria shouted, pulling them both back to their feet. But as she did, a shadowy figure stepped into view from behind the tree, its face a blend of familiarity mixed with horror. It was Mrs. Jenkins, their kind neighbor, her eyes hollow and devoid of light, fixated on them with an empty gaze. "Help us, Maria," she called, her voice a hollow echo, but the urgency was gone. "We all need to join." "Mom, it's Mrs. Jenkins," Alex yelled, confusion rippling through him. "She looks different." That realization crushed Maria's resolve. The kind woman they once knew was trapped, lost to whatever malevolence shadowed the forest. "Lily, Alex, don't look at her," she screamed, yanking them away, but the forest quaked with a new fury. Branches creaked ominously, and the fog thickened, swarming around them like a hungry beast. She could feel the darkness beckoning, a whisper curling around the back of her mind, asking for her surrender. Dread clawed at her heart. Could it take them all? Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble and shift, and the gnarled roots erupted from the earth, snaking toward them with unnatural speed. "Run!" she yelled again, adrenaline pouring into her veins as they raced into the thickening shadows. The chanting grew deafening, and she felt the presence of those lost souls closing in around them, their hands grasping at the momentum of their flight, trying to pull them back. They darted past twisted trunks and bushes scratching at their skin, breaths ragged in the chilling air. The shadows hissed, merging into the very fabric of the darkness behind them. She could hear the mocking laughter, the sorrowful cries, indistinguishable voices clawing at her sanity. And just then, they spotted it, a narrow path weaving through the trees, illuminated faintly by the swirling mist. But would it lead to freedom, or deeper into the horror? "Mom, we can't go in there," Alex pleaded, eyeing the path with a mixture of hope and dread. "We have to. It's our only chance," Maria shouted back, a fierce determination igniting within her as they turned to face the unknown. They stepped onto the path, uncertainty slamming against her like a wall. With every painful step, she could feel the whispers intensifying, merging into an incessant roar of fear and despair, but as they moved forward into the darkness, a chilling thought crept in: how long until the darkness consumed them too? The shadows stretched behind and above, turning ever closer. What price would they have to pay to break free, if freedom even awaited beyond this haunted path? The path twisted and turned, cutting through the trees. Shadows flickered, darting alongside them like a dark tide. Each step felt like they were sinking into the ground, weightless and yet anchored with terror. Maria's heart slammed against her ribs, her breath shallow and prickling with anxiety. The shadows seemed to mock her efforts, creeping closer as if they had a pulse of their own, alive in the night. "Mom, I can't run anymore," Lily whimpered, her small legs wobbling. Maria glanced back, dread pooling in her stomach. The chanting was growing louder, a pulsating heartbeat mingling with the footsteps, growing ever more frenzied, suffocating their hope. "Hold on, sweetheart. Just a little farther." But as she propelled them forward, the realization hit her. The path wasn't just carved through the trees, it was leading them deeper, into the heart of the darkness. She could feel a cold hand squeezing her mind, twisting thoughts into knots, trying to reel her in. As treacherous as the roots writhing at her feet, the fog thickened, turning into a wall of chilling mist that enveloped them like a shroud. It felt clammy and stifling, each breath a struggle. Shadows danced in the periphery, their forms rippling as if they were watching and waiting. Maria's instincts screamed for her to run faster, to escape, but the path ahead wavered beneath her gaze, chin up to the suffocating gloom. "Mom?" Alex breathed, his voice breaking. "Stay close to me. I promise, we're going to find a way out." As despair clawed its way up her throat, she remembered their neighbor's voice, her eyes hollow. What had become of Mrs. Jenkins? Could she be just another soul lost to the forest's insatiable hunger? With each step, Maria felt the suffocating weight of that knowledge wrap around her heart, squeezing until the air felt thin. They reached a fork in the path, each way cloaked in darkness. One way whispered emptiness, the other murmured promises that felt eerily familiar. Maria's mind raced as she considered their options, the madness leaking into her thoughts, a dark tendril curling around her will. "Which way, Mom? Please, we need to decide." Alex cried, desperation making his voice tremble, but as Maria stood there, overwhelmed, the ground shook again. This time, the trembling felt more sinister, more deliberate. The air thundered with unearthly sounds, the breaking of branches, like skulls fracturing, sharp and terrible. "Listen!" Lily shrieked, pointing a trembling finger into the darkness. From the left path surged throngs of shadows, writhing like smoke, pouring out from the trees. They screeched with urgency, voices faltering into panicked pleas, join us no." Maria shouted, grasping her children tightly. The cacophony of despair tugged at every weakness within her, threatening to unravel her sanity. They needed to move, to choose before the darkness swallowed them whole. "Take the right path. Go," she commanded, redirecting them into the suffocating embrace of the trees. The shadows nipped at their heels, a gnawing reminder that time was running out. The further they went, the more claustrophobic it became. She could hear the whisper of leaves dragging against one another, the tantalizing promises of the trees growing louder. She felt it pulling her, exploring the crevices of her mind, clawing at her will. Would they escape, or would they join the many lost in the echoes? Suddenly, they reached a clearing. The mist swirled thick, and at the center was another tree, even more grotesque than the last, bark twisted and knotted. A low moan escaped, vibrating through the ground like a funeral dirge. "Mom, what is that?" Alex clutched at Maria's side, body trembling. "I don't know," she whispered, choking on the dread that settled deep in her stomach. The tree seemed to pulse, the movement real and alive, and then they heard it, a raspy whisper breaking through the cacophony of murmurs, distinct and unyielding. "You cannot escape, not now, not ever." Panic spiked, electricity coursing through her limbs. All of the shadows, all of the souls, they were there. Just behind the tree, waiting for them to falter, Maria turned to look at her children, their faces pale, eyes wide, reflecting mirrors of her own terror. They needed to get away if they could before the forest claimed them too. "Run! We have to go!" Yet just as they prepared to sprint, the ground gave way beneath them. Darkness surged, pulling them into the abyss. What awaited them below? Was there truly a path back, or had they just sealed their fate by stepping too deeply into the wood's embrace? The descent was swift, a plummet through the unseen into a void thicker than the fog above. Maria grasped at Alex and Lily, but their fingers slid apart like water. She could feel her chest constricting, panic rising as shadows pressed in, their cries intertwined as the world above disappeared. A sudden thud jolted her back to reality. The ground had solidified below them, a cold, hard surface that felt alive, writhing beneath her. They landed with a dull thump surrounded by an oppressive darkness that swallowed sound and light alike. "Mom?" Alex's voice trembled, the fear palpable as it reverberated in the empty space. "I'm here." Maria gasped, her heart pounding. She fumbled in the pitch black, fingers brushing against clammy, uneven ground. "Lily!" She screamed, dread wrapping around her voice. She could feel the weight of silence pressing heavily against her. "Here, Mom." Lily's voice, smaller than before, floated through the darkness. Maria reached out, her hand finding her daughter's thin arm, and she pulled Lily close, relief flooding through her. Still, the echo of whispers surrounded them, reverberating in the air like a low hum. "We're hungry," the whispers coiled around her, growing louder, a rapacious chorus that twisted and clawed. "We have to move," Maria said, her voice stronger than she felt. The instinct to flee burned within her. She turned, dragging Lily and Alex along a path that felt more like mud than earth, slick and treacherous. With every step, the whispers morphed into a chant, a mournful symphony that echoed through the ground. "Lost forever lost," the words sank into her bones, chilling her to the core. "Mom, I don't like this place," Alex whined, his small body trembling against her. "It's okay, we will find a way out," she reassured him, but the weight of her certainty was crumbling. As they pressed forward, shapes began to manifest in the darkness around them. They loomed like ghostly sentinels, twisted forms of trees, their branches contorted into skeletal hands reaching out, almost inviting. "Look!" Lily pointed, her voice shaky. Ahead lay a flickering light, weak and wavering like a desperate heartbeat in the oppressive darkness. "Please, let it be a way out," Maria whispered, the hope kindling within her. They crept toward the light, fighting through the dread winding itself around their legs. Each step felt more laborious, as though the very earth was trying to drag them back, to pull them under. The light revealed a glimmering pool in a hollowed-out section of the ground, the water reflecting the shadows of what was lurking nearby. Swirling forms danced in the water, shadows of faces, mouths twisted in silent screams and open eyes filled with terror. Alex gasped sharply, "What are they doing in there?" Maria froze, the realization hitting her like a fist. They were not just reflections, they were the trapped souls of those who had wandered into the woods before them, unable to escape the dark clutches of despair. "Get away from the water!" she yelled, wrapping her arms protectively around her children, but it was too late. The water began to churn, bubbles rising like angry whispers spewing forth. Join us," echoed the mournful chant now louder, reverberating through the hollow like an unholy invocation. Shadows writhed along the banks, reaching for them with ethereal fingers, pulling at the edges of their sanity. With adrenaline surging through her veins, Maria bolted, yanking her children along with her. They stumbled back the way they had come, leaving behind the eerie light that was now gorging on their fear. But as they raced against the shadows chasing them, the ground began to quake, a low rumble that grew into a terrifying roar. The walls of darkness closed in, and Maria fought desperately to stay upright, dragging her children as their cries turned into whispers and then silence. What lay ahead? Would they be consumed by the remnants of those who had gone before them or find a way to escape the haunting siren call echoing through the woods? As the rumbles turned into agonized screams, one voice cut through. "You'll never escape." They reached another fork in the path, one that branched sharply into 3 dark corridors. Which way would lead them to freedom? Or would it lead them deeper into the insatiable hunger of the shadows? Behind them, the forest seemed to inhale deeply, ready to exhale its next prey. Maria's heart raced as she glanced at her children, bracing for a choice that might seal their fate. And then it happened, a gust of wind swirling with whispers tore past them, leaving a chilling message in its wake: "You belong to us now." The darkness loomed, thick and suffocating, as Maria felt the weight of her children's small hands in hers. In the oppressive silence, doubt gnawed at her insides, tangling with her fierce desire to protect them at any cost. The creepy whispers tightened like nooses around her throat. She had to choose. "Which way, Mom?" Alex's voice quivered, barely a whisper over the rising tide of dread. "Stay close," Maria commanded, her voice trembling but resolute. Before her, the 3 corridors twisted into oblivion, each shrouded in a different shade of black. They felt alive, breathing shadows, sucking in the very hope she clung to. She studied them, mind racing. The one to the left seemed denser, an inky abyss that called out like a siren. The middle had a faint metallic scent, blood or rust. The right corridor held an unsettling chill, like the breath of the damned. "We should go left," she said, though a knot tightened in her stomach. It felt wrong. She couldn't shake the thought of what lay beyond. "Maybe the right is safer, Mom," Lily pleaded. "No. We go left. We have to keep moving." Her decision felt like a lead weight in her chest. As they stepped forward, the shadows crawled behind them, whispering darker prophecies. "You'll lose your way, we're waiting." Within moments, her choice felt regretful. The corridor stretched endlessly, walls squeezing in, coated with slick moss that seemed to pulse alive as they moved through. Footfalls slipped, and Maria kept gripping tighter, the sweat on their fingers an anchor against the terror threatening to pull them apart. Suddenly, the whispers transformed, intertwining into a body of sound that felt like a wave crashing over her, drowning her senses. "Don't trust her, she's leading you to your doom, Mom. It's too dark," Alex whimpered. "Look." Lily pointed toward a distant glimmer, a spark tinged with hope that shimmered like a beacon. But as they drew closer, it morphed into something undeniably grotesque, a series of portraits affixed to the wall, faces twisted in agony, eyes pleading for release, mouths frozen in screams. How do they look like us?" Alex's question snaked into Maria's mind, mixing with the violence of horror. "I don't know," she yelled, panic rising like bile in her throat. The portraits seemed to shift, impossibly alive, reflecting not just terror but memories, moments of their own family trapped within those painted horrors. Maria stumbled back, dragging her children away as the whispers now yowled with laughter, mocking them. "You will become another." Racing back down the corridor, they ran blindly, terror splashing against their skin like icy water. Another fork loomed, the one on the right shimmered coldly, and suddenly, a high-pitched scream echoed out, splitting the air. There was no time. They barreled forward, heartbeats synchronizing in frantic distress. The madness chased them, shadows swirling behind until Maria could feel their breath at her neck. "Stay close," she urged, the instinct to shield her children burning bright. She plunged into the right corridor, abandoning thought for instinct. The chill intensified, wrapping them in a clammy embrace. Suddenly, a clearing appeared, bathed in pale moonlight, stark against the surrounding gloom. A solitary stone altar stood at the center. What looked like offerings littered the ground, items familiar yet twisted, lost trinkets from lives now consumed by the woods. "Mom, I don't like this place," Alex whimpered as he pressed closer. "We've got to search for a way out," Maria whispered, fighting the urge to scream, the weight of despair pressing on her lungs. They approached slowly, the altar pulsating with a sickly glow, shadows flickering dangerously around its edges. Atop the altar lay a book, bound in what looked like human skin, open to reveal pages smeared with dark ink. Blood or something worse? It beckoned her. Maria shivered, a sickening pull urging her to reach out. "Mom?" Lily's voice trembled, threading through the air, warm yet laced with fear. Something shifted in the shadows, a figure formed just on the edges, an outline. Growing clearer. The eyes glinted like coals in the dark. "You should never come here," the spirit hissed, its presence saturating the air with dread. Something was wrong. Everything about this moment screamed danger. Now they stood at the precipice of revelation, the clues of their fate tantalizingly close. What were the sacrifices made here? And what would it demand of them? As the woods throbbed, resonating with hungry anticipation, Maria felt a surge of desperation. Could she save her children from the fate lingering at the edges of her reality? In that moment, realization crashed over her like freezing water. To escape, they had to confront the truth etched deep in the altar, but the shadows closing in reminded her of the price of knowledge. Could she bear to discover what lurked in the pages of that book? As the voice coiled tighter around them, and the figure stepped forward, a new whisper vibrated through the air. "Join us or become one of us." Would they make the ultimate sacrifice to uncover the price of escape, or would they find themselves lost within this maze forever? The spirit loomed, its cold aura suffocating the air around them. Maria's heart raced, every instinct screaming at her to flee, yet her feet were anchored to the ground, eyes locked on that book. The whispers around them morphed into a cacophony, wrapping around her mind, filling it with visions of despair. Each moment stretched like eternity as the figure stepped further into the moonlight, casting longer shadows. "You have come to a place of choices," it hissed, voice gravelly as if it scraped against the stones of the altar. "But the price is steep. Will you risk everything?" Maria felt the weight of its gaze. How could she respond? To defy would mean their doom, yet to submit seemed a darkness she couldn't bear. The children pressed against her, their soft whimpers turning into muted cries that echoed her inner turmoil. "Mom! I can't breathe!" Alex exclaimed, his small frame trembling. "Hold on, my loves," she whispered, gathering her courage, frantic and desperate. She realized the decision boiled down to them. The book. The truths it held. Ignoring her instincts, she took a step toward the altar. The moment her foot touched the stone slab, the whispers erupted into a savage din, the air constricting around them. "You've chosen betrayal, choose wisely now." Maria reached for the pages, fingers brushing against the gruesome texture. They felt warm, alive. As she opened the book wide, sinister letters began to shift and swirl, forming words that clawed at her mind. "Each page is a soul, each word a sacrifice." With each turn, the ink morphed into grisly tales of those who had tried to escape before her, their desperation and final, agonizing choices laid out in blood. They had sought freedom, but at what cost? The figures in the portraits echoed their dreadful ends. "Mom! Stop! Please!" Lily screamed, and a cold shudder traversed Maria's spine. She cast a glance at her children, fear etched in their wide eyes. They were minutes away from being reported lost, from becoming part of this hellish tale. "Embrace the darkness, and you may yet find a way out," the spirit urged, still lurking close. Maria felt its breath, rancid and chilling, as she gripped the book tighter. "No! I want tea!" She shouted suddenly, defiance blazing in her own heart, a flicker of light against the tide of darkness. The moment she spoke, the book trembled in her hands, the pages flaring in a violent tempest, illuminating the clearing in a blinding white light. "Release what is shackled within." The spirit's voice twisted with fury, echoing like thunder, and the shadows thrashed in frantic agitation, the altar shook, and the night erupted with shrieks. Maria felt her fingers aching, burning like they were being devoured by flames. She had to make a choice. Would she let go of the one horror revealed to her, or would she cling to the desperate hope of a truth buried among the darkness? "Mom, please! What's happening?" Alex cried, pulling Lily closer, both trembling like leaves caught in a storm. Suddenly, the ground split open behind them, revealing a maw of swirling shadows, eager to swallow them whole. The whispers morphed into screams, urgent warnings drowning in despair. Maria's heart pounded. Why was she still holding on? What if the secret revealed was the key to saving her children or dooming them entirely? Terror gripped her as she stared at the book. The truth lay within those cursed pages, and the abyss behind them beckoned like a lost love, promising escape but carrying a cost she wasn't yet willing to pay. "We can't retreat now," she shouted, more to herself than to anyone. "We have to face this." But the shadows were closing in. "Join us or be lost forever." The spirit's voice shrieked, and with that, the altar erupted with a blinding light, sending her sprawling backward. Maria landed hard, disoriented. The children's cries faded into a deep silence. She scrambled up, her mind spinning. Where were they? The chilling wind carried the last echo of the spirit's threat. The choice is no longer yours. What had she unlocked? The darkness pulsed like a lurking beast, and time was slipping. She had to find her children before the woods claimed them all. Choosing life or damnation, she'd have to confront the whispers that outlined their fate. But in a split second, the shadows twisted again, and the very ground began to shift, mirroring the depths of her growing dread. Could she rescue them before the woods sealed their fate forever? Maria blinked against the residual brightness, trying to piece together her surroundings. The sudden luminescence had vanished, leaving her enveloped in shadow. A heavy silence hung like a thick fog, suffocating her senses. Alex? Lily? Panic clawed at her throat as her voice trembled into the dark. Each heartbeat echoed ominously in her ears. The clearing felt another world, twisted and warped as if the very air shifted. The ground beneath her was still jagged from the explosion of light, and a few stones lay scattered like lost memories. Time twisted. Minutes dragged on. They had to be nearby, they had to. Please. Her voice came out as a whisper, frayed and fragile. Then, from somewhere behind her, she heard whispers faint yet insistent, pooling into the air like dark smoke. Look into the depths, Maria, the choice remains. Stomach churning, she glanced back toward the altar, heart racing. Shadows danced on the edge of her vision, coaxing her to return. What truth awaited her there? The spirit's words chilled her more profoundly than the night. Mom, it was Alex's voice, small, weak, filled with a desperate hope that both soothed and terrified her. Alex. She lunged toward the sound, but the ground shifted, throwing her off balance. The shadows tugged at her, pullulating and swirling, eager to drag her into their depths. She stumbled, regaining her footing and pushing forward. Lily, where are you? Here. Another voice, barely above a whisper, drifted through the oppressive air. This time it was Lily, her tone laced with an eerie calm that left Maria uneasy. She dashed toward it, heart in her throat. The path seemed to lengthen, twisting into dark corners where the trees loomed over her, eyes as hollow as the abyss behind her. Mom, we don't know where we are. Alex added, sounding small and lost. Everything is dark. Stay close. She shouted, voice breaking the eerie stillness. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, and the trees swayed as though alive, their bark morphing into grotesque faces that sneered and leered at Maria. She could feel their malice, a hunger, a thirst for anguish. A cold gust whipped through the clearing, chilling her to the bone. Maria spun around, terrified. The shadows flickered, twisting into figures that lashed out with skeletal hands, clawing at the very fabric of her mind. You must choose. No. She roared into the night. Fighting her way through despair, she pressed forward, arms outstretched as if she could pierce through the shadows to find her children. Where are you? Then she saw them. Their small forms huddled together, faces pale with fear. Relief surged through her, but it was short-lived. The specter emerged again, a cruel smile spreading across its gaunt face. Before they can escape, you must sacrifice a piece of yourself, Maria, it hissed, curling its fingers like a spider preparing to ensnare its prey. What will you give? No. I want tea. I refuse your games. Maria screamed, heart pounding in her chest. But the spirit did not relent, eyes glinting with wicked joy as it leaned closer. It's already inside you. The darkness you fear, it grows. The price of love, Maria. Nothing is ever free. The words cut through her. Maria stumbled, wrestling with a growing sense of dread. How far would she go to save them? The night echoed with their whispers, join us here, join us. Then she felt it, an insidious warmth curling around her heart, squeezing tighter with each breath. Maria's resolve shattered like glass. I want to let you have them. She cried, determination flaring, though her voice trembled. But the choice loomed, looming behind layers of fog and deception, stretching toward a cliff where light and darkness converged. She had to decide. Mom. Help us. The sound of her children crying broke through. Time stretched as dread gripped her heart. Would she brave the abyss and embrace the darkness within, or would she dare to resist and risk losing everything? A shadow surged forward. Was it the spirit or her very own fear? In that breathless moment, a chilling realization dawned upon her. What had she truly awakened? The ground trembled again, revealing a path shrouded in a deeper darkness with a whispered invitation. Step forward, or be lost. But as she slid into that darkness, she knew together, they faced a choice that would reverberate through the ages. Would she fight the dark or succumb to its call? The darkness pulsed, an echo of fear wrapped within an ancient remembering. Maria stood at the precipice of despair, heart pounding and mind racing. She had faced shadows and whispers that clawed at her very essence, but now, before her stood the final choice: embrace the darkness or fight for the light that flickered dimly like a dying flame. "Mom. Please." Alex's voice broke through her swirling thoughts, raw and grating against her soul. The urgency in his tone reignited her resolve. She would not let them go. Not now, not ever. With renewed determination, Maria stepped toward her children, the shadows recoiling momentarily as if feeling the force of her love. "I will protect you," she shouted into the chilling void, and in that moment, the ground shuddered, the specter snarled, twisting into a grotesque visage. "You offer nothing to gain. Sacrifice weighs heavy, Maria. What will you give?" Her mind raced with memories, of laughter, of summer days, of bedtime stories, moments woven together to create their bond. She could feel the darkness pricking at those joyous memories, trying to unravel it all, yet clarity washed over her. "I will not sacrifice my love," she declared, clenching her fists as her heart surged with fierce pride. "I will sacrifice my fear, my doubt." The shadows recoiled as if burnt by her words. "Such strength fuels your fire, but it won't save you," the spirit hissed, a tremor of anxiety creeping into its voice. But Maria didn't flinch. "You can't consume love, but fear can be shed like skin." She extended her arms, channeling every ounce of her being toward her children. "Fight with me. We won't let the darkness win." Alex and Lily, emboldened by their mother's conviction, squeezed tight. In that moment, the shadows twisted, pulsing around them like a tempest, but they stood firm. Maria felt the warmth of their connection, a flicker of light amidst a growing storm. "You are not alone," she shouted as the darkness coiled tightly around her heart, trying to extinguish that light. As she stepped out of the shadows and into the light encircling her family, something magical happened. The mist began to shimmer, illuminating the clearing with a golden hue. The onrush of memories surged back, and the ground beneath pulsed in harmony with their bond. The chanting shadows fell silent, their swirling darkness losing cohesion. Suddenly, the spirit lunged, ferocity roaring within it. "You cannot defy what you've awakened." But Maria's heart screamed louder, a defiance ignited, spilling over with radiant determination. "Watch me." Maria drew every fragment of strength she possessed, pouring it into the very fabric of that light. "We are the whispers of hope. We are stronger together." The aura around them flickered before exploding outward in waves of brilliance. The ground swallowed the shadows whole, and the trees around them trembled and bowed, roots thrashing as if releasing centuries of trapped sorrow. Then, in a deafening silence punctuated only by their heartbeats, the shadows dissipated like mist before the morning sun. The oppressive heaviness lifted, swirling into the void from which it came. Maria pulled Alex and Lily closer, breathing in deep gulps of air, overwhelming relief flushing through her. "We did it," she whispered in disbelief, her heart leaping with cautious hope. Laughter, a sweet sound, echoed among the trees, vibrant and alive. The forest had shifted, shedding its malevolence for the grace that could replace it. "Mom, look." Lily pointed, eyes wide with wonder at the radiant trees, their bark now vibrant and warm, the branches swaying gently in some unseen breeze. Maria smiled, her heart swelling with an indescribable love. "Yes, my loves. We're safe." The darkness, the terrible burden of Blackthorn, was no longer theirs to bear. They could walk away now, reunited and stronger than before, ready to face whatever challenges lay beyond the trees. hand in hand, they stepped back into the world, into the light that welcomed them home. Blackthorn had whispered its last threat, and they emerged victorious, their spirits unbroken, but as they sauntered away, a soft whisper slipped through the leaves behind them, an echo lingering in the air, "We will wait, we will come again." Even as they turned their backs, Maria felt the weight of the message settle in her bones, a reminder that darkness, even if temporarily dispelled, would forever linger just beyond the edge of light. As they walked toward the warmth of home, she held her children tighter, embracing the truth of her love. Love was stronger than fear, and together, they could weather whatever shadows lay ahead. Now, before you close this chapter and journey back to your life, I need you to take action. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that will grip your heart and mind. Smash that like button now, seriously, it feeds the algorithm and helps us reach more fans just like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. I want to hear everything you think. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this story ends. Thank you for being here. For your support, we can't keep these stories going without you.